The commercials are those immovable granite blocks that frame every television discussion. And Donald Trump knew that all he had to do to beat every Sunday morning TV interviewer at the game was to keep spewing nonsense until the so-called interview would crash into that immovable object, the TV commercial.
Here's the trick in plain view. The gotcha in a Sunday show isn't a question, it's the ad break. If you can babble long enough, the clock saves you. It's like playing chess where your strategy is never moving a piece, just run the timer and declare victory when the buzzer hits. And yes, it works, because TV worships two things, the rundown and the revenue. Interviewers know the block is coming, producers are counting frames, the guest just has to filibuster with confidence and buzzwords. So what happens? Substance gets negotiated down to zero. Facts don't need to be wrong to lose, they just need to be late. By the time the host is ready to push back, the floor manager is waving the wrap sign, and we cut to a car ad promising quiet luxury, which is funny because the conversation we just watched had plenty of noise and very little luxury. The bigger picture. When format beats journalism, power learns the format. And once a politician realizes the clock is a shield, accountability becomes optional. Convenient, right?
You gave him the questions in writing? So now, instead of letting Trump hide in a phone call, where we can at least know that it's him talking, Donald Trump gets to hide behind the black screen of texting? We actually have no idea who texted the replies in that so-called interview. CNN is unable to prove that Donald Trump was actually doing that texting.
This is not an interview. It's a customer service chat. Press 1 for pre-written answers. Press 2 to avoid follow-ups. Text-only Q&A dodges the core requirement of journalism, verification, who typed it, when, with what delay. If you can't authenticate authorship, you haven't interviewed a person you've received text from a device. That might be a spokesperson, a staffer, or a Notes app ghostwriter. And handing over the questions first? That's not tough reporting. That's open book testing with the option to phone a friend. Why it matters? Format shapes truth. Text responses erase tone, pauses, and contradictions. There's no on-the-spot fact check or, hold on, answer the question. It creates plausible deniability on demand. If the quote ages badly, you can always hint that a staffer sent it or that the message lacked context. Meanwhile, the headline still screams, exclusive. This turns accountability into a group project where the grade is always incomplete. If major outlets normalize this, powerful figures will never have to face unscripted scrutiny again. Convenient again.
The final slow pitch softball question was, how do you think the government shutdown is going to end? That question got the empty answer it deserved. Someone texted this reply as an answer to that question of how the shutdown is going to end. Good, we are winning and cutting costs big time, exclamation point.
Winning big time. That's not an answer, it's a slogan on autopilot. You can practically hear the caps lock key sweating. This is what happens when political theater replaces conversation. Every question becomes a prompt for self-congratulation. Forget context, policy, or facts, just sprinkle in winning and big time and you're done. It's the fast food version of governance, quick, greasy, and nutritionally bankrupt. And the worst part? News outlets still call it an exclusive. Imagine giving someone 5 essay questions, getting back 1 emoji and a campaign slogan, and still printing it as a statement. The bar isn't just low, it's in the basement, waving a white flag. This is where the word exclusive loses meaning. Journalism used to mean access in exchange for truth, now it's access in exchange for clicks. Good, we are winning, isn't news. It's a confession that the interview format itself has stopped demanding anything real.
I asked a few other questions on text, still waiting for a response on those, Mr. President. Okay, what were those questions? Exactly which questions did Donald Trump refuse to answer? What could be more relevant in reporting an exchange that is supposed to be with the President of the United States than including the questions he refused to answer?
You know journalism is on life support when the missing questions are the most interesting part of an interview. The reporter literally says, still waiting for a response, and then poof, never tells us what those unanswered questions were. That's like a detective saying, we think the suspect knows something, but we forgot to ask what. This isn't a scoop, it's a shrug in print, and it shows how the media's obsession with access trumps, pun intended, their duty to inform. Because revealing those questions might make the subject look evasive, and heaven forbid we risk the next exclusive. So instead, viewers are left wondering, were those questions about Epstein? About taxes? About the shutdown chaos? We'll never know because apparently transparency now has an NDA. The irony? Silence has become strategy. If you never answer tough questions, journalists can't quote your lies, only your ghosting. The absence of response becomes the new PR tactic. Less damage, more mystery, and a headline that still says, interview. Brilliant, in the most cynical way possible.
If Joe Biden had ever given the answer, quote, complete obliteration, end quote, to what happens next in Gaza or anywhere else in the world, that same interviewer would have pointed to it correctly, I think, as proof of mental incapacity to do the job of president.
Ah, yes. Complete obliteration. Two words that sound less like policy and more like the title of a rejected 80 seconds action movie. This is where language becomes performance art. When you say something that extreme, you're not communicating policy, you're auditioning for cable news soundbites. It's emotional pyrotechnics, loud, flashy, but empty at the core. And here's the kicker, the double standard. If Biden had typed those words, we'd have a 48-hour news cycle diagnosing his mental health and running think pieces titled, Is America Safe? But when Trump does it, it's Tuesday. The outrage economy has selective billing, and Trump always gets the VIP discount. The phrase complete obliteration is so cartoonish it almost loops back to comedy, except it's about a real region, real lives, and real stakes. Words like that signal recklessness, the casual tossing of world-altering threats like confetti, and when the media treats it as just colorful phrasing, it normalizes madness in a suit.
In the Oval Office, surrounded by reporters today, Donald Trump said, quote, I use tariffs to stop wars, end quote, and not one reporter challenged that madness in any way. Donald Trump also said this about tariffs, quote, we make, hundreds of billions of dollars, end quote. And the next question after he said that did not involve a reporter pointing out to the president that every single penny that is collected by the United States Treasury in tariffs is paid by Americans inside this country.
There it is again, the magic trick of modern politics. Say anything with confidence, and the room nods politely. Tariffs stop wars is the kind of statement that should cause at least one reporter to choke on their coffee. But instead, we get silence. Maybe they were too stunned. Maybe they were afraid to lose access. Or maybe they've just built up immunity to nonsense. Let's be clear, tariffs don't make money. They take it from U.S. consumers and businesses. It's a hidden tax dressed up as nationalism. But the press corps, instead of correcting the record, moves on like it's small talk at brunch. Next question, next circus act. This isn't journalism, it's stenography with lighting. When no one pushes back, the lie becomes the headline, and over time, repetition does the rest. The result? Millions believe tariffs are profit generators, not economic self-punches. The White House press briefing has turned into a group project where nobody wants to lose participation points.
The Supreme Court is back, and they rejected today an appeal by Ghislaine Maxwell to overturn her conviction. That means her only chance of getting out of prison is a pardon from you. Is that something you're...
Who are we talking about?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
I haven't heard the name in so long. I can say this, that I'd have to take a look at it.
There's something surreal about watching a former president talk about possibly pardoning a convicted sex trafficker as if he's deciding on a lunch order. I'd have to take a look at it. What exactly is he looking for a Yelp review? The man is asked about Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman found guilty of participating in Epstein's abuse of minors, and his first instinct is to stall, waffle, and treat it like a bureaucratic chore. Let's decode the subtext. I'll look at it means I'd rather not commit to anything that could upset my friends, donors, or fragile image. It's moral cowardice wrapped in folksy indecision. And the tragedy is how numb the public has become to it. Once upon a time, a president, even considering a pardon for someone convicted of trafficking children, would cause a national scandal. Now it's just another Tuesday headline. This isn't neutrality, it's decay. The normalization of, I don't know, I'll look at it, reflects a political culture where accountability is optional and decency is negotiable.
Maxwell helped lead the Epstein sex trafficking ring and was directly involved in the abuse of women and children. The Trump administration's ongoing effort to pressure Maxwell into aiding their cover-up, including arranging an interview with Donald Trump's former attorney, Todd Blanche, is outrageous and shameful.
And that's where the circle closes. A presidency defined by chaos, a press addicted to access, and a system where the outrageous somehow keeps getting normalized. When networks bend over backward to secure exclusive interviews that may not even involve the actual person, when the White House press corps can't correct basic economic falsehoods, when someone flirts with pardoning a convicted trafficker and we just move on, that's not politics as usual. That's moral exhaustion. So what do? We stop rewarding the circus, demand better questions, not better ratings, reward journalists who push back, not those who play along. Because when the powerful learn they can ignore the truth and still get airtime, democracy stops being a dialogue, it becomes a one-man show, and we've all seen how that ends. If you found this breakdown useful, hit subscribe, drop your thoughts below, and tell me which part of this interview stunned you the most. The next video dives into how political theater manipulates the news cycle and what that means for 2025's election season.